today we're going to review the IT&S minority spend, what the donations that we made to the community over the past couple of years, our local diverse hiring, and our progress in the development of the new local vendor portal, which what Phil alluded to a little earlier. Next slide. This is the dashboard that we created to manage, or at least review, the minority spend. We wanted to make sure we had a good focus on what we were spending on, the departments that are working with those local minority vendors, and make sure that we kept track of it as closely as we could. Next slide. So just to point out that over the last couple of years, we started this initiative at the end of 2018 to 2019, and we have progressed nicely over those last few years. I will note, though, that the EPIC effort has gave us a tremendous bump in 2021, and I expect that to continue in 22 and into 23 as well. So we're doing, I think, a pretty good, decent job there in getting some of these local vendors engaged. Next slide. There we go. I just wanted to highlight a couple local vendors that we deal with. SHI is our reseller. We buy most of our computer equipment from them. They're headquartered in Somerset, New Jersey. It's a women-owned business, and we spent a little over $12 million with them. It says 12K, but it's really 12 million with them in 2021. Diverson is a local IT staffing company located in Red Bank, and they provide application analysts and project managers for key applications that we have within our system. And in 2021, we did a $1.9 million spend with them. And the other company we use that's local is Back to the Future. They're a computer recycling company headquartered in Franklin, and we did a little over 200,000 spent with them. But this is just to highlight that we have from large to small vendors that we're dealing with locally. Thank you. On the community donations, over the past couple of years, we've donated a little over 107 laptops. These are older laptops that we refurbish and send out to the community. Next slide. All right, working with the social impact group, we've identified certain areas, and these are the facilities that have donated the laptops. And in 2020 and in 2021, we donated 7 laptops, and I believe we're going to discuss more laptops that we donated this year right after this presentation. All right, our diverse and local hiring. So overall, the targeted zip codes our local hiring is about 5.7%, excuse me. And I want to highlight 2 areas where we've done, I think, probably a little bit better than overall in IT. So in clinical informatics, this is the team that is kind of the liaison between our operations folks and IT. And in 2021, we hired 50% of the new hires were from those ALICE zip codes, those targeted zip codes. Service management, you guys are all familiar with it. These guys are our field service guys that come out and help with our desktops and laptops. And we have 15% of our new hires were from those zip codes as well. In addition to the new hires, we also have instituted a program with NJIT to partner with in developing an internship program. The internship program is in 2 phases, either a 12 or 6-month program, depending on what the student is enrolled in at the school. Last year, we did 2 internships, and then we actually hired one of those interns into an open position in our security department. Next slide. All right. Any questions so far on the spend, the donations, and the... All right, very good. Next, we want to talk about is our local vendor portal. So Diana approached me several months ago with the idea of putting this together, and we put together a team, and I want to mention that team. It's Phil, Adrian, from our supply chain. We have Rich Seta from marketing. We have Imran and Pavan from our IT team to help put this together, and they've done a great job so far in identifying it. So the goal in putting this together was to make sure that we have a way to identify local and diverse vendors, to make sure that we promote any contract opportunities that we have, which we're going to provide. Looking at a second phase to our program. I want to get it launched and then add additional functionality. Leverage any state or community data that's available, so to kind of get a jump start on getting that program going. And then, of course, support our local business with resources to mutually benefit RWJ and the local community. Next slide. There you go. Thank you. All right. So the local vendor portal, we're looking to create some search functions that would allow us to search on business name, category, and location, so that when we make this available internally to our staff, they have several areas on which they can search on. If they're looking for a local florist, they'll be able to go by category and they'll be able to find it. Excuse me. So the potential for new and local vendors, in addition to existing vendors, we're gonna allow the vendors to go onto the bridge and be able to register their information onto the bridge, and then I'll explain that process and how we get that information over into PeopleSoft in the next slide. So when we looked at the workflow, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't too intrusive on the way we do things today. So we want to really incorporate the way we look for local vendors within our current workflow. And I think that with the design that we come up with accomplishes that. This way, if it doesn't make it too intrusive, they're more likely to use a local vendor and make it easier for them to find them. On the bi-directional, we want to make sure that we, as I said earlier, when we post, if we have any contract opportunities, we're going to post it on our website and allow the local vendors to register for that opportunity. That may be a little bit of a phase 2. We want to get the basic program up and running, and then we'll add that feature a little later. Any questions so far? All right, next slide. All right, so the new so SI Connect is a program that actually Imran's team is developing that is going to be the intermediary between our website and PeopleSoft. So Imran, are you there? Do you want to speak a little bit about SI Connect?
Yep, I'm here. You guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
All right, cool. So, so SI Connect, Social Impact Connect, right? So that's the piece of solution that we're developing that is going to help us connect the information collected from the public website, where the local vendors will go and they will provide that information, bring that information over and take it to the supply chain team headed by Adrian, and let them kind of review the information, make sure that the information that we do need, all the information is there. If they need additional information, then provide them some software controls where they can reach out automatically back to the vendor and ask them that you're missing like this and that information, and then local vendor would be provided a secure link to log in and provide that missing information so that Adrian's team can continue their review process. Once all the information has been vetted, at that point they will approve the information. It's gonna be sent over to the PeopleSoft. So this intermediate piece that is like totally custom development that the development team is gonna be doing, and the entire development is gonna be taking place in-house.
Thank you, Imran.
You're welcome.
And the vendor vetting process, that's part of Adrian's team. And I'll let Adrian explain what the process we're going to go through to vet these vendors, make sure that we are able to do business with them. Adrian, you're on mute.
Imran, thank you, Angela, for the great work that you guys have been doing and supporting us in this. As both of you just mentioned, we're trying to create a vendor repository that's available to all employees within RWJBarnabas, so they can easily identify minority-owned vendors, local vendors, and small businesses. We've done a lot of work to try to figure out the best way to have a lesser impact on our current vendor ad process, and mainly keep the integrity of our current vendor ad process, but at the same time enrich it and provide more visibility and more data categorization and searchability to the portal. So once the vendors go into this public portal, they will fill their information. It's going to stop for my team to review that we have the correct licensing or paperwork that the vendor requires to be a minority owned, a certification from the state of New Jersey, and things of that nature. We'll review it and we'll keep it in a repository for our end users to select these vendors during the RFI process. Once the vendor is awarded a project, we will be going through the regular process without interfering the data integrity that we go through today. We'll add the vendor with all the information or all paperwork that's necessary, the appropriate contract, into PeopleSoft, and enable the vendor or enable the user to create a purchase order, and ultimately we can pay the vendor without any issues once the project is completed. So that's a workflow that's very extensive. We are trying to do this without additional resources, and leveraging technology has been great help, and working with Angelo has definitely been a great experience. So thank you, everyone, and any questions I'm happy to answer.
Sure. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the general workflow. Can we go back to the other slide? Just want to cover a couple more things. So the overall workflow, as we just described, is that the vendor will come into the website, they'll register their information. SI Connect is where we do the vetting piece along with PaymentWorks. That's the official way for us to set up the vendors within our system. And then that vendor will be fed into PeopleSoft once it's fully vetted. And that once it's in PeopleSoft, we're looking to develop a new tile within PeopleSoft that will allow our internal users to go in and search for local vendors. And then once they find the vendor that they want to work with, they can either they'll be calling Phil to do a contract, get a master agreement in place, and or get the any final steps needed to get that vendor set up. We've enhanced our external website to capture some additional information. I think the original website we had some basic information, but we needed more in order to make this a more functional program. And we're going to have search capabilities that from the bridge and within PeopleSoft itself. So we'll have a link right from the bridge that'll go right into PeopleSoft, so that they can, in whatever venue you're using, you'll have access to that information.
We do have a question.
Yes.
From Sabina. Will the vendors already be vetted to meet our vendor requirements?
So that's the process that Adrian's going to go through. Once they register, the vendors will be vetted to meet our vendor requirements.
I just wanted to highlight, the vendors will be vetted to make sure they have the appropriate documentation that qualifies them as a local or minority vendor. If the vendor is able to do the task or the project that we want to include them in, that's going to be a revision of the subject matter experts during the RFI or RFP process.
Adrian, is it difficult to get the necessary documentation to prove that you're a minority or women-owned business?
The vendor usually, or when suppliers log into the portal, they should have these certificates from the state of New Jersey or other states if they're minority vendors. There is a process that the state has to get their certificates. I'm not familiar with that. I'm sure they require paperwork,
Yeah.
on who owns the business, and that might take a few weeks or maybe months. But once the supplier has that, we're only going to review that that's a valid certificate, and move the supplier into our repository of vendors where they can be selected and awarded a project.
Thank you. I just want to be sensitive to the notion that a minority-owned business might not know how to get that certificate or would need help. I know we have an inventory of names of businesses. If there are any tips that we could communicate to them on how to, in fact, make sure they have up-to-date certificates, it might be helpful, but it's just a thought.
Barry, this is Phil. Just to give you a little idea, the concept behind the portal is to be self-serving on two sides. One for us as an organization, the other side for the vendors. We have to make sure that the vendors know what we want and how to work with us so they can be successful in bidding on these projects. So there will be links to help them get the information to make sure they have their certificates. You know, we have tried through the state database and the MTA databases to cross-reference our vendors so we could obtain the certificates that they may or may not, well, that they may have. And it has been challenging. One of the things we'll talk about a little bit in a couple of slides here is the work that we are actually moving forward with the state to actually have a vetted, certified database that we can tap into.
So if I could jump in, this is Diana.
Okay.
Barry, we are well aware of that, which you had just addressed. And actually, in the next slide, if I could jump forward, I have a solution. To your point, not all vendors are aware of the certification process. So while they might be eligible, they just don't know. So in an effort to educate our small businesses, our local vendors, we actually created a resource hub on the new Buy Local website, where it provides, again, information as to where they can certify. And if they cannot do it directly online through that link, then they can partner with one of our community partners, the Small Business Development Center, which provides technical assistance and handholding to ensure that they can successfully complete that certification. So all that information, again, now is externally facing. Previously, it was not. So to your point, there was the challenge of, well, where do I get certified? Am I eligible? We actually have all those questions, those frequently asked questions on there as well, so they can see if they're eligible or not. And then lastly, I will add that the state used to have I believe it was like $100 fee, but there used to be a fee to be able to certify. The state has waived that. So there is no cost now to ensure that they are certified as a diverse business.
Adrian, Phil, and Diana, thank you. That really answers my question. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Diana. And as you can see, there's a link there, right there. It says register your business. Once they click on that, then go to the next page. And they'll get this screen for the vendor to go in and, oops, next page. Yeah. So they'll see this screen so they can register their business. Right. I know it's an eye chart. I apologize.
Yeah, and the other thing, if I could add, in our website, you also notice that we included some information on the prompt payment policy, because we realized that was also an issue area where folks that were certified didn't know that they were eligible for this benefit that RWJBarnabas provides to small businesses. So there is that information as well, that if in fact they are able to provide us with a small business certification, then they are able to get paid within the 30 days. All right.
Next slide. So some of the things we've done, and actually we're well into these steps here. The workflow is already completed. We did have an initial meeting with marketing to talk about developing a communication plan, both internally and externally, so we can get the word out to the vendors that this is available for them to go to our website and start registering. And over the rest of this month and next month, we're going to be building out the rest of the environment. We're going to test the system in May, and with our expectation to go live in early June. Any questions? All right, so next, there we go. Future considerations. And Phil, I know you're excited to talk about this, so I'm going to roll it over to you.
I am, but you have to understand why. I think Diana and I are both very excited because we're like kids at Christmas right now. This is actually the final piece to really make this a system that's going to allow us to create sustainable growth in the communities. We had to go through an incredible journey to get here. We had to understand how to rethink, our big business mentality. How do we get down to a level that we can actually, work with these vendors and redoing things as Diana had mentioned, payment terms and contracts, and rethinking bids and RFPs was our first step. The next, we had to figure out a support system. How do we get these vendors to strengthen their abilities to work with us? And we were the first group to pilot a cohort through the Ascend Newark program. We developed an educational system that will give vendors the abilities to create project plans and to do the things that we need them to do. And from there, we're about to launch the second cohort. We've been training, as Barry pointed out, all of those companies that are on there. We sit down with Prudential today, helping them develop their first cohort. So we've made giant steps in all of the progress to create this system to lead to that goal. I think, we had to understand as an organization what our landscape was. Through the incredible work that Adrian and Supply Chain Analytics did, we've been able to aggregate our data. We've been able to categorize it and segment it. So we know what we're doing, where we're doing it, and how much we're spending by vendors, by service lines. So we're able to really understand as an organization what our footprint is. The next step is, how do we identify the opportunities and how do we tie those opportunities to the vendor community? And this portal is the thing that does it for us. It allows us to now be more fully integrated with our communities. It allows us to tie to all of the collaboratives that are out there who are still trying to figure out how to categorize our data. I think early, about 2 years ago, we grabbed the bull by the horns and said, listen, keep doing what you're doing. We're going to push forward on our path and we'll happily take you along. The state stood up. They heard us. They recognized that. And now we're leading into this part, which will take us into the future. And that future is with the state. We're working with Rutgers right now to develop their database, which is over 5,000 vendors that they have been working, to certify. They're making sure that all the necessary paperwork is there. Now we're through the graduate program at Rutgers University, the business school. We've gotten some graduate students who are now working on the ability to integrate that database into the work that we're doing here. And we don't have 5,000 vendors running into our system. I mean, I think Adrian wouldn't sleep anymore, but we need to find, how do we know more than what we know today? Who's out there? Who can we extend it to? Who can we invite into RFPs? Or, what flower shop can we run and get, birthday flowers sent to somebody in the hotel, in the hospital, in the hospital. But we have to start to think about these things. And this portal will close the last step for us that will allow us to push this as the first prototype of a fully closed system. We can work with the vendors, we can help support and educate the vendors, we can identify opportunity, and we can tie all of that back into what's available that can be created as sustainable growth in the market space. So this truly is phenomenal work, and it's brought us, as you've heard several times today, way ahead of the curve with anybody else. We are being looked at as the experts in this area and being asked, help us get something like RWJBH has up and running. So it is really exciting, and I'm just waiting to see the results of what all of this will bring within the next couple of months. So I'm confident we've got a really great program in place, and I'm very excited about it.
Thank you, Phil.
Absolutely.
Next slide. That's it. We're done. Coming in June.